Welcome back to Redefining Love. I am your host, Tara Portelli, and today I have such a crazy episode for you. If any of you guys have ever watched the movie The Tinder Swindler, well, let me tell you, this episode is for you because this is like a real life copycat version of The Tinder Swindler that showed up in my life. So yes, this is another solo episode. I have so many episodes to share with you guys, including interviews, but for some reason, I just felt so called to share this story. This was actually the very first episode I had recorded back almost a year ago, and I was sharing this story as my very first episode. And the reason is because it was so significant, not only for myself, for my growth, but also to show us where we abandon ourselves. So, can you relate? Do you abandon yourself to try to make a relationship work? Or maybe you choose someone that isn't in alignment with your values, and you try to create this version of you that makes them want you or want to be in a relationship with you. Well, this was like a full-on abandonment of myself, and when I actually think back to that time and that version of me, I feel like a little bit humiliated, but the truth is, it's my truth. It's my story. This has been my journey in relationships, and I'm growing and I'm realizing so much more about myself and also about the people that I attract into my life. Because let's not forget that the people we attract into our lives are a mirror. So if you're attracting in someone that's betraying you or that is going to betray you, well, where are you betraying yourself? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because essentially it's all by design. Maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. Maybe the more you listen to this podcast and you hear this truth and this embodied wisdom through experiences like this one, and you can see the patterns, then you can start to believe, well, maybe this wasn't by accident. So with that said, enjoy this episode of Redefining Love. So on this episode, I wanted to talk about dating, relationships, and most importantly, the relationship with yourself. I'm 42 now. I'm almost 43. And if there's anything that I've learned in my almost 43 years of being on this planet, it is that the most important relationship you will ever have in your entire life, that will shadow everything, is the relationship with yourself. And we are so taught in this society to look outside of ourselves for love, to look for happiness outside of ourselves. But what you'll realize very quickly as you move through your life journey is that happiness actually doesn't exist outside of you. That is a false premise. It has been taught to us, and it is just not correct. The reality is that when we can find happiness within ourselves, when we can cultivate love for ourselves, that everything outside of us is not a dependency. It doesn't determine our worth. It doesn't determine the value that we place on ourselves. And so, like I said, the biggest journey and the most awakened experience I have learned has been the relationship with myself. And I'll be honest, I have been through hell in the case of relationships. I started my relationship career when I was 13 years old, and one after the other, I just kept falling into relationships. I went from 2-year relationships consistently all the way to a 7-year relationship in which I married him, and it was an 18-month marriage. And the one pattern that I noticed in every single relationship was that I was trying to help them. I was trying to save them from themselves. I was trying to be the healer. And you will learn along your path that that's just not possible. that we are all on our own journeys, and that it's really important to take care of yourself. And of course, it's important to support other people along the way, but you cannot do their journey for them. You cannot save them from pain, from suffering, from difficult experiences, because that's enabling them to come to their own realizations and their own inner wisdom. And the only way that we truly come to inner wisdom is to go through experiences that are very challenging and difficult. Because every single time we go through those hard times in our life, we breed more wisdom. We make more space for more wisdom. I like to think about it as we are caterpillars and we go into a cocoon, and that cocoon is the darkness. And those dark times are going to come. They're going to come again and again and again. And we just get better at navigating them. But what we also need to realize is that our growth and expansion and healing comes when we are in the darkness. Comfortable and light, they're great and they're important because we need those times. But the most important parts of our existence on our journey and our path is going through those dark times, those challenges. And so as the savior of these men, boys in my life, all of my life, I sacrificed myself. I never put myself first. I never really allowed myself to be honored. I never stayed in line with my values. I always made excuses for behaviors that were unacceptable, that did not adhere to my own values. And in doing so, I lost myself and I became insecure because I didn't know who I was. I wasn't secure in myself. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't in love with me. My love was dependent on if somebody loved me outside of myself. And so back in 2018, after leaving my marriage, which lasted 18 months, I ended up on a journey, a very healing journey in Tulum, Mexico. And when I found this journey or this healing, which was psilocybin therapy, I was not looking for it. I was not somebody that would ever dabble in psychedelics as a hobby. I never really even used cannabis. I was not somebody that ever did any type of drug or mind-altering substance other than alcohol when I was younger and infrequently now. But when I finally came to this place of finding this healing, it was the most unearthing, most beautiful, most loving experience I could have ever asked for. It was the moment that I truly understood and saw myself as I was meant to be seen, as I was meant to see myself. This experience of self-love for the first time is so empowering. It makes you realize that you've kept yourself small as you've put all of your weight and your self-worth into other people's hands. But the reality is that when you can fully love yourself and embrace yourself, that people are going to start to see this confidence in you. You're going to radiate out an energy that's very different. It's not a needing energy. It's an empowered, assertive energy. And when you step into this energy within yourself, just watch what happens around you. Watch who gravitates to you. And as I've been working on myself, this is an ongoing journey. This is not a one and done. This is an ongoing journey. Life is constantly learning and growing and evolving. And as I've been on this path and I've continuously, even to this day, attracted in the wrong people into my life, I've now understood it from a very different lens. And everything that happens to us in our reality and every experience that we're going through is actually meant to help us to come back into balance. And balance meaning a balance in masculine and feminine energy, a balance inside of yourself of giving and receiving. And sometimes when we're on one side or the other of that balance, that middle point, we are going to attract in the equal but opposite of where we are at. So I'll just share with you this story that actually happened to me. And this was an ongoing relationship I was in 2023. And it ended in July 2023. So I had met this guy, and we were in a relationship after I had been on my own for 5 years doing a lot of deep healing work. Dated casually, but never really anything serious, and met this guy, and it's making me feel like loved, adored, appreciated, honored, and it was just something I'd never experienced before. And he was also from a Latin culture, so maybe I was not used to how open they are and how loving they are. And so I was just like really enamored by this man. And as I reflect back on that relationship, which ended up being long distance because I was at the time living in Mexico and he was living in Canada, I look back at his inability to be able to communicate correctly, not returning messages for days, disappearing. I mean, I put up with so much along the way, but every time we would get on a call, he would give me everything I needed in that moment to feel reassured, to trust, and to just let go. And so I would always give him the benefit of the doubt. And that went on for the entire 10 months. And along the way, there was a lot of things that came up. Other people from his past would show up in our reality together, and he would always have the perfect excuse and reason for their existence. Believe him. But there was many sleepless nights, lots. I realized along the way during this relationship that I was somebody who had a secure attachment style, but also an anxious attachment style. And for those of you that don't know what attachment styles are, you should read the book Attached. I can't remember the author, but it's just very enlightening, and it just really helps you to understand your own attachments to relationships. And it's based off of your childhood and how your parents would soothe you during times of need. And so I realized during this relationship that I had this anxious attachment style, but again, I was also securely attached. And it would really show itself in the times that he would disappear and I wasn't able to get a hold of him. He would have like the best reasons why he disappeared. And it was always something to do with the struggling of his mental health or his health overall, or there was always a reason. And I just wanted so much to believe in this person and believe that, that we had something special, and that it was the first time I was truly just trusting in my partner, because prior to that, I was not a trusting person. But I felt like I had really come a long way within myself, and I was ready to really, truly trust. And so I turned a blind eye to all of these things. Anyways, fast forward to July 2023. He had gone on a trip, which I was supposed to join him with, but then again, he had many excuses of why it wasn't a good idea for me to join, and so I just accepted it and came back from his trip, and I was meant to go and visit. And so at this stage, I was actually living back in Canada. I had come back to trial living together because that was what he wanted. And so we were looking for a place together, and I was going to temporarily live in Toronto and try to make this work. So I was excited to see him, had my bags packed, was about to leave to go down and visit with him. and sends me a message and says, maybe in a couple days would be better for me. And I was just so hurt. And it was like the umpteenth time he had canceled on me, delayed me. I mean, what I put up with in this quote unquote relationship was just not honoring myself. And so I went inside the house. I was at my mom's and I was devastated. And she saw it written all over my face. And so I went inside. I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I just was trying to be strong. And then she comes to me. She says, "I have something to share with you." And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, it looks like he's all over the internet on this site, which is like, Are We Dating the Same Guy site? And there's many comments from women that claim to have seen him recently and that they're wondering if anybody else is seeing him too." And so I went through this feed of all of these women that he had been supposedly dating in the time frame that we were together. And I was so upset. I called him right away. Of course, he denied everything, said that these are all old posts, that this website's trying to sabotage him because he pissed off somebody. For a moment, actually almost believed him. And so I was like, how am I going to navigate this situation? So I decided to contact the psychic that I see once in a blue moon. And we did a reading. And my question to her was, I've found out about these people. He's denying it. What is the truth? And so she had unveiled to me that these, in fact, were true, that this one specific girl I could completely trust, that she was similar to me, and that we would probably be good friends, and that I could trust her, and to give her a call. So I reached out to this girl that was one of the girls that commented on this site, and we got on a call, and it was the most heartbreaking, devastating experience to hear all of her encounters with him. And once I started putting all the dots together, it was all the times that he had ditched me or put off seeing me or whatever excuses. All of the timelines just started to make sense, and I was able to really understand now the bigger picture that was happening. And one of the things she said to me was, there's more. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and I was just so disgusted. We were in therapy together. He was relocating and moving with me after we trialed living together. He had put in every surface level forward motion commitment to me that I believed in him. And that was last year, July 2023, just over a year ago now. And it took me a really long time to come back from that experience. And what I now see and understand and realize is that I was looking so hard for somebody to love me outside of myself, to feel loved, to feel validated. Now what I see is what he was doing to me was called love bombing. Now I understand narcissism. Now I understand all of the gaslighting that happened along the way and all of the classic traits. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about my attachment style. I learned about people that can actually trigger their attachment style. He would be considered avoidantly attached, and we are just like oil and water. So having grown and learned from that situation, I realized that, I was so deeply looking for some love outside of myself that I was willing to accept and throw out all of my values and all of the self-respect for myself in order to be in this relationship, no matter how much he hurt me, no matter how much he wasn't consistent. lacked good communication, all of the things that are important for a healthy relationship. And in all honesty, I've never had an example of a healthy relationship. My parents have both been married and divorced twice, in abusive relationships. I've witnessed abusive relationships my whole life, and I just feel that I just didn't have a good foundation to understand how to be in a healthy relationship, because I was looking and seeking for love outside of myself and not healing those wounds inside of me. So now, in the last year since that experience, I've been doing so much deep healing work. I have been working on allowing things to come up, to feel my emotions, which is the only way to heal, is to actually experience and allow yourself to sit with how you feel, to express your emotions. And in doing that, you are allowing them to alchemize, to transmute into a different energy. It's a release. And the only way that you can actually heal is to release emotions, because emotions are energy in motion. They were never meant to ever be suppressed. But we've been so taught in this society to push it away, push it down, distract ourselves. Or we fall into distraction through drugs, alcohol, sex, distractions like Netflix and our phones and Instagram and all of the social media out there nowadays. But actually what we should be doing is, when we feel, is to actually feel those feelings. And sometimes they're really painful, but it's like in that pain that you are healing. It's in the pain that you will come out and emerge a stronger version of you. It's in that pain that you are going to become a butterfly out of that cocoon. And so now, as difficult as it is sitting sometimes in your emotions and your pain, the way that I feel after I have an entire session of just being like a snotty mess on my couch with a box of Kleenex and writing in my journal, or writing or typing out something on the computer, is so cathartic and more healing and more freeing and more liberating than ever distracting myself and not allowing myself to feel how I feel. And so that has been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And, I feel like on this journey, it's going to be rocky. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be difficult. But it's realizing that the difficulties are necessary and the difficulties are coming. And so when we know they're going to come, we become better prepared for them. When you know that it's ebbs and flows always, when you know that there's no lotus without the mud, when you realize that darkness needs light, when you realize that negative needs positive, masculine and feminine, that everything in our life and everything in nature is duality, opposing its opposites. When you realize that, when you understand that that is just how nature works, and we are just no different than nature, because we are also part of nature, we are an extension. Our bodies are made up of all of the elements from the earth. There is no coincidence in that. When we understand this, and we understand that difficult times are coming for us, and the reason that they're here is to help us to grow, to help us to be redirected on the right path instead of the wrong one, to learn how to navigate our own intuition, to understand how to navigate our own emotions, how to become empowered from the experiences we go through our life instead of becoming the victim. When we kind of come to that wisdom within us, when we embark on that, we become the greatest version of us. We will step into our power, and we will attract the right relationships into our life, because we no longer are going to accept the wrong ones. We become the navigators of our own life. We are in control of who gets to come through our door of our life and who is not allowed in, who needs to leave. And as we become stronger and more grounded within ourselves, we can make those decisions without hesitation, without feeling bad, without guilt, without shame, without all of those negative emotions that we have put on ourselves. Because we are meant to be in balance. And sometimes that means making hard decisions. Leaving my marriage in 2018 was the most difficult, absolutely devastating, heartbreaking thing I ever did in my entire life. And the reason I just made that decision after 7 years of being together and only 18 months of being married is because I finally woke up. I realized that I was sacrificing myself for this man, that he was not committed to his own work or his own journey, that he was becoming the victim of his life, that he was not willing to do the work. And I had to choose myself. I had to decide that I just wasn't willing to be with somebody that wasn't able to show up for themselves, never mind me. And that's not a partnership. And it wasn't about to change. It hadn't changed. If anything, it had worsened in the 7 years we were together. But it wasn't going to change. And fast forward 4 years later, after we broke up, I got a message from him. And he had shared with me that he had a mental breakdown. And that he finally understood why he needed to go to therapy. He finally understood that the way that he was showing up in his life was around his childhood wounds, that he was now seeing a therapist, that he now understood how he showed up in our relationship, and he apologized. And I thought that was so beautiful for him to find the strength and the courage to share that with me, given how resistant he was to change, how resistant he was to even going to therapy, to doing any of the work within therapy. And I really genuinely still care about him as a person. He was a beautiful human, just somebody who was tormented inside and just wasn't ready to do the work. And once you're ready to show up and do your own healing work, your life is going to transform. I can promise you that. I was insecure. I was unsure of who I was, where I was going, what I'm doing in my life. I was the backseat driver of my life. I was just getting pulled around wherever anybody wanted to take me. But now I stand in my own power. Now I get to decide. Now I live a really great life. And yes, I'm on my own, but I'm also not willing to sacrifice myself again for a relationship because everything that I need and everything that I want is within me. And so adding somebody else to my life is just going to be a bonus. And I'm still open to that possibility. But I'll tell you, I have very strict values that now somebody has to adhere to. I have a long list of qualifications for somebody to enter into my life. And I'm not saying that from a place of judgment or from a place of being unrealistic. I just know how much effort and how much work and how much struggle I've had to go to get to this place in my own life. And I'm just not willing to throw it away because I'm meeting somebody who's not also doing that work too. I want somebody to join me on my path as a partner, as somebody who inspires me, who pushes me to be better, who cares about me and my own happiness and not just their own, and somebody who will walk beside me, not expect me to drag them with me. And that was every relationship I was in since I was 13 years old. I've been dragging people up the hill with me. And then the moment I left my marriage, the moment I decided to be completely sovereign for 5 years, was the moment that my entire life skyrocketed. That I finally got into alignment with what I was really meant to do in this life and not just what everybody else thought I was meant to do. The amount of times I listened to partners tell me what I needed to do, the amount of jobs I had just because they told me that's what I needed to do, that's how out of touch with myself I was. I was a puppet. So if this sounds like you, if this resonates for you, if this sounds like a journey you want to go on, then this is the podcast for you, because every step of the way I'm going to show you through people's stories, through my own stories, through my own wisdom, through my own inspiration, through meditation, through all these different modalities and stories and experiences and words. I'm going to teach you how to take your own power back, how to step into your own authenticity, how to be yourself, how to be okay with being yourself. I mean, God, in this world, it's like so difficult sometimes just to show up and be us. We're so fearful of judgment. We're so fearful of not being the same as everybody else. But the reality is that you were never meant to come to this life to be the same. We were all meant to come with our own gifts, with our own essence, and to infuse that essence into everything that we do in this lifetime. You are not meant to look like that person, to share like that person, to speak like that person. You are meant to be and share and speak and walk your own path as an individual. And so that's what this podcast is going to be about. And I'm excited to be on this journey with you. I'm excited that I have gone through the things I have gone through so that I can share with you my own wisdom and path to empowerment. So keep coming back, keep showing up, keep learning, and keep doing your deep work. So that concludes another episode of Redefining Love. Thank you so much for being here with me, for listening. And if you want to try my Pain to Empowerment course to up-level your own expansion of consciousness, understanding your own personal relationships and struggles from a deeper level, then for a limited time, I'm offering 40% off for all of the listeners of this podcast. So check out the show notes. Thank you for being here with me. If you love what you're hearing, if it's helping you in some way, please rate and review, subscribe to this podcast. It only helps me get it out to more people. Have a beautiful day and see you guys next week.